My name is Cecily, and I've had psoriasis since I was 11 years old. I was very young. I knew nobody else with the disease, and I had no idea really what it was. Family doctor told me it was psoriasis, but didn't really explain it. And it wasn't until much later in my adult life that I learned a lot more about it after it got very bad. And I was hospitalized because of the symptoms. And that kind of brought me to seeing the dermatologist I see today, who finally treated me the right way. Initially, I was only treated by my family doctor, and it was mostly just with topical lotions. Eventually, I was finally referred to a dermatologist when I was about 18 years old. There was only one in the city that I lived in, so I had no choice or selection of who to see. He further gave me more topical lotions, ointments, creams, special shampoos. When those didn't really work well, or they weren't something I could keep up with in order to maintain, symptoms that weren't awful, he eventually sent me to light treatment. And I had to take a big pill, which would apparently help your skin absorb the light better from the light booth at the hospital. But the pill gave me such horrible symptoms. I was so sick, dizzy, I couldn't walk, that I eventually had to stop taking the pill. And so the light treatments weren't working very well because I wasn't, able to do it the way that it was really prescribed. Tried steroids, which actually was what sent me to the hospital because my body reacted so poorly to the oral steroid that the psoriasis just exploded rather than improving. So I had to come off that, back to different types of creams and lotions, which at that point my body was so badly covered that there just wasn't a big enough tub of any prescription cream that could possibly, cover everything. And it would have taken me hours and hours a day just to do what I needed to do, and I eventually just gave up. Stopped seeing doctors for about 3 years, just sort of accepted my condition for what it was, and finally saw a dermatologist who referred me to my current doctor, and he's the one that actually helped me get on biologics. That was 2.5 years ago, and we've never looked back. Psoriasis really, it ruled my life when it was in its full swing. I stopped doing anything that I used to enjoy. I stopped going swimming, I stopped going to social events that might require, clothing that it would reflect my symptoms. For instance, camping, because in the summer when it's hot, I would be the only person wearing long sleeve sweaters and pants or jeans. And you'd be hot and miserable and sweaty and uncomfortable, and everybody else would be relaxed and having a good time, and of course always asking, "Aren't you hot? Why don't you take off your sweater?" And it just became something I didn't want to deal with, so instead of facing that, I just stopped going. Going to other things like weddings or fancy parties, it was impossible to find something to wear that was long enough that it would cover my legs and also had long sleeves and sometimes a high neck because it would be on my neck or my chest. So it sort of became that focus of every single time I was invited to do something. My first thought was, how am I going to be able to cover up my psoriasis? I guess the way that I often explain it is that I shut off a life that I enjoyed because of how bad my psoriasis got, and then that further just made my life, it was a bit sad, really, when I look back on it. And when I found treatment with my current dermatologist, it was literally like a light, a light went on and my whole life just completely went into a reverse. It was a 180-degree turn. All of a sudden, my symptoms cleared up, and I didn't have to think about it anymore. When it was about different things like, do I want to go to a barbecue? Sure, I'm going to go to a barbecue because I don't care about what I'm going to wear. I don't have to think about how I'm going to feel that day or whether I'm in pain. And it just became something that wasn't at the forefront of my mind anymore, which I'm so relieved for. I think that one thing I would say is whoever it is needs to realize that they're not alone. And I think that's a very difficult thing to bring to the forefront of your mind because very few of us ever meet someone with psoriasis. And yet there's so many people in Canada with it and suffering with it. Realize that there's ways of finding support, whether you're going to reach out over the internet now or through social media. Find someone to talk to and ultimately find that person that's going to help you work through those dark days. and you have to become your own, your own advocate and your own fighter. And it's totally worth it. And that's all, it's all I can sort of sum it up as, is there will never be a day that you will ever regret maybe going through those weeks or months of fighting to see the right doctor, because once you get that treatment, it's honestly like you get your life back again.